Hi everyone, welcome to Tech Down Over. Today, it's just the over guy. The Down Under guy's not here. He's working. So he'll be here tomorrow on another show we're doing, but we're joined by Hugh Brownstone. You guys all know Hugh. He does a great job on his podcast and his videos. And hey, Hugh, we're glad to have you back.
Thanks for inviting me back on. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, same here. Here's a quick intro. Now, I have to tell you that, oops. That's a little word from our sponsors.
Yeah.
I actually forgot this was on. That's the problem with automation. When you do automation, no, stop. Hold on. There we go. Sorry about that. When you do automation, sometimes you forgot what's been automated. I go, why is that playing? That's not even for this show. So, anyway, sorry about that. Yeah, Hugh, poor Jeff. He was crying today. He goes, I want to see you. And I understand. It's just that sometimes because of the down under schedule, it becomes hard to do anything on a timely basis. Because when we do our show, I think it's about 7 o'clock his time. No, actually, it's a little later right now. I don't think they change time. Well, maybe they do. But anyway, so he said, say hi. So I will say hi to you. Also,
Hey,
you got another hi from Curtis Judd.
I think Curtis is great.
He is. And I asked him if he could be co-hosting. And he really wanted to, but he was stuck in meetings he couldn't get out of. So anyway, so it's just you and I today, and we'll just talk it up a little bit. Now, you've been busy. I've been watching a lot of your videos. This morning, I saw half of one of yours. I was starting to get into it, and I got interrupted. And that's the one you did with Sean Robinson from Panasonic.
Yeah.
Now, that was interesting. That was, for those of you who don't know, I guess, what is Sean? He's like an evangelist for Panasonic?
He's a marketing manager for Panasonic US.
Yep, he does a great job.
Yeah, he's really in the center of these last two cameras, the GH5 in the United States and the G9. So the G9 was completely unexpected. I mean, the rumors didn't surface until about a week before the camera was going to be announced. And it was surprising for a number of reasons, not the least of which the GH5 is riding so high. And yet here you are with a new camera coming out the same year or within 12 months, which is truly a new camera. It's a different body. It has the same sensor and processing engine, but other than that, I mean, they've had to tool completely new parts. The body's made out of magnesium. The battery grip is different. The viewfinder is different. It's even more gorgeous than the GH5.
Interesting.
So I was fortunate enough to be invited to a press briefing a week before. And after that was done, and I had a chance to go hands-on with it then, I left to visit. Actually, I can't tell you who I left to visit, but I left to visit family. Let's just say that.
Sure.
And as I'm driving to, I can say it to my sisters. And as I'm driving there, I'm thinking about all the questions I didn't ask Sean, and so I called him up and said, "Hey, what do you think about just getting back together? I can drive over to you, or you can come over here." And he said, "I'll come out there." And so it was very spur of the moment, and it was just a tremendously enjoyable conversation. I think he's a great guy, very knowledgeable, very passionate, very committed to what he's doing, as you can tell from the fact that he's got tats on each arm, one for the Leica Nocticron lens cutaway, and the other for the Summilux 1.6.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. I have the Nocticron. It's a good lens.
I know you do.
It's a fun lens. It compares pretty well to any of my Canon bigger lenses. It's just a beautiful, sharp lens. It's nice. Yeah, it's interesting. That's about an 85 millimeter real lens, I think. About an 85, I think.
That's right, exactly.
And the first time I went out with it, I keep forgetting. So I buy the Panasonic lens, and then I go, great, I got a 42.5. I go out and it's like, oh, it's more like an 85, 90. What is this? And then I remember, right, crop factor, it's just so interesting that they never tell you what. I mean, it's still a 42.5 millimeter lens. It just works differently on the Panasonic. Now, the G8, now there is a pattern to what they're doing with that, because if you look at when the GH4 came out, within a short time, maybe 3 to 5 months, the GX8 came out. And the G8, and technically the G9, this is not a GX9, it's a G9.
That's what's so interesting.
That's different, yeah, because the G7 was just a small little camera. And this thing now is like, wow, that looked like a hefty, nice size to it.
Well, let's see. What do we got here? Do I have it here? I have it somewhere. Yeah, here it is. So here's the G7.
Okay.
I mean, the G9.
Yep.
And two things. The little red accent is a nice little touch. What you can see is that they've taken the two dials, the two top plate dials from the GH5. So let's see, this one, and then they've taken the one on the left and they've made it a collar on this one.
Right.
So this is the same one on the top, and then they've got the collar. If I can turn it around.
And then you have the little LED orange display, right?
Yeah, right. So that's right on top here. And let's see. There we go.
Now, is it lighter than the GH5?
It is lighter than the GH5. This is really interesting. So let me take the battery grip off to the GH5 so that it's apples to apples. And as I said before, they really are two different grips. They have to be. But they're close.
Close, okay.
They're close. But the G9, I have to say, and I didn't anticipate this either. I mean, I didn't anticipate the camera at all. It is a little more precise. Are you a skier?
No.
Okay, so, but for those of you who are, or for those of your audience who are, skiing is a very precise sport, and edge control is really where it's at.
Yeah.
And it's in that edge. It's how the buttons and the on-off switch, for example, moves. It's very different. It's a slightly different, slightly higher level than what's on the GH5. Not that there was anything wrong with the GH5. I think the GH5 is great. But that's it. And the other thing, of course, that's really interesting is that G9, A9, you know, Sony comes out with a camera in the A9 that they want to attack the pinnacle of the professional market, which is sports shooting. And here's Panasonic intending to do the exact same thing. It's going after the exact same market with a micro four thirds 20 megapixel sensor. I think that's really, really interesting, because on the one hand, you'll have a lot of people saying, Rick, forget it, it's micro four thirds, it's for kids. But you'll have other people, and I tend to be in this other camp, saying, you know, for 99% of the time, even with professionals, that's enough. I really buy what Sean was saying. It's enough. And people will forget, or people don't know, for example, that Brian Smith, the Pulitzer Prize winning photographer who caught Greg Louganis hitting his head on the diving board back in the 84 LA Olympics. I mean, if you actually look at that photograph, there's a tremendous amount of grain, but who cares? Who cares? It's just an amazing event. And so, of course, our expectations evolve over time. But sometimes, and you and I are both guilty of this, we spend too much time on the specs and not enough time on what it's actually like in terms of deliverables.
Well, no, you and I have both shot with full-frame cameras. You've had Canons, I believe. I've had Canons. I've had Nikons, and never had a Sony full-frame. But I look at them, and I look at what I get out of my Panasonics often, and I just sit in wonderment going, you know, it doesn't look that bad. It's sometimes I just go, oh, it's not really that bad at all, and most people can't tell what it was filmed. And if you do something like Metabones, you put a Metabones adapter, you put your Canon lenses on or your Sigmas, my gosh, it looks good.
Well, Well, so that's another interesting thing. So f-stoppers, Lee Morris just did this comparison of the iPhone 10 against the GH5 in 4K, 60 frames per second, and then 120 frames per second full HD. And if you really blow it up, you can see the differences. But he asserts, as I've asserted since 2015, I think, when I wrote Apple's iPhone, the next video revolution, yeah, most people aren't going to tell the difference. And it's not like it's not that bad. It's great.
I know.
It's really great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the fun part of it all. It's and if you ask the average person, they don't know what the difference, micro four thirds, a full frame, and an APS-C sensor. I don't know, what does it do? All I know is of all the cameras I've held and had, and it's been quite a few, I find the Panasonic GH4 and GH5 the absolute most ergonomic cameras I've ever held. They just feel perfect in my hands.
So I said to Claudia the other day, I said, imagine we're in the desert and we pick up a rock.
Mm-hmm.
We're cave people. It's like the Flintstones. Instead of the Brownstones, it's the Flintstones. I pick up a rock and I say, I'm going to make this a camera. Okay? So what's the very first thing you're going to attach to this rock to make people understand it's a camera? A lens.
A lens, yep.
And maybe the second thing is a viewfinder. Now, what's the third thing that you're going to put on it? Well, probably some kind of shutter release, but then what's the fourth thing? And I'll tell you for sure what the fourth thing is not. It's a C1 or FN1 button.
Right.
Guaranteed.
Yep.
Guaranteed. And the flip side is, if you start with a rock, and the first thing you put on is a C1 button or an FN button or just a dial with no label on it, no one will have any idea what it is.
That's true.
So to your point, the manual of arms on the G9 and the, let me see if I can put it up here, the G9 and the GH5 with dedicated ISO, white balance, and exposure compensation buttons right there is fantastic. You don't have to take your eye away from the viewfinder to see it. So I think that's great.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I was looking at that going, maybe I should cancel one of my... I've got two Canons on pre-order. One is the Canon, I think it's...
The 405?
No, I got the 405. That one I like. I don't have it yet, but it's coming out soon. And the I think it's CX10 or GX10, which is the Vixia. It's exactly the same camera without the audio handle.
Gotcha.
And I'm thinking, maybe I want to get the Panasonic instead. Mainly because I like shooting pictures on the Panasonic. I shoot a lot with the GH5, and I think the pictures are pretty good. I shot with the GH4. I love the pictures that came out of the GX8 when I had it. I still have it, actually. It was really nice. Video wasn't very good on it. It shot good video, but the controls sucked for video. They just weren't there. But the GH5 for video, I still sit in awe going, I can literally walk around with this, and I don't need a stabilizer.
No, and this is one of the things that's fascinating about the G9. Blew me away. So again, I'm a Sony shooter. I am now a Panasonic shooter as well. I have two systems because sometimes you need different tools.
Sure.
But I was blown away by the Sony A7R III, and I did not want to be. I did not want to be, but it's fantastic. The ergos are still problematic.
Right, they're small. It's small.
And I conceptualize it as a stills camera. It is a hybrid. But I wouldn't buy it for its video capabilities because its video capabilities don't match that of the GH5.
Interesting. Okay.
They actually don't. But on the other hand, the A9 is designed to be first and foremost a stills camera. And they brought out this 200 millimeter 2.8 image stabilized lens, which is a full frame equivalent of 400 millimeter field of view. And 2.8 is 2.8, although from a light gathering perspective, although not from a depth of field perspective.
Right.
But then again, when you're shooting telephoto in sports, that's not quite as important. And that just is nuts.
So what do you think of the whole... it's still the same body pretty much as the original one, correct? It's about the same size.
It's about the same size, but it is absolutely, unlike Sony and unlike Canon, who use the same body and then do different tweaks.
Right.
This is a ground-up new body.
Oh.
It's a new body. All the pieces are different.
Interesting.
Well, except for the dials. and so I think that says something to Panasonic's commitment to the marketplace. So I'm really interested. I'll be shooting in Philadelphia over the weekend with another really good blogger, Chris Gambit, a photographer. He's coming down to Philly. But our intent is to shoot with medium format film cameras. We're just going to have a good time. But I will be bringing the G9 along with me because the Mamiya RB67 doesn't have a meter.
Ah, okay.
But what's really interesting is that the A7R3 has pixel shifting. The G9 has pixel shifting. I mean, and you really can only use that in a very limited way.
Right. Is this for focus? Is that for post focus or?
No. So it is in the Sony A7R3. The Sony can, when you go to pixel shift mode, it takes 4 images in rapid succession, shifting by 1 pixel in each direction.
Yeah.
With the G9, it also has pixel shifting. It's and they're both using the in-body image stabilizers to do this. It's shifting half a pixel in 8 different shots.
Interesting.
And then pulling them together. And so when you're talking about product shots or architectural shots, the difference between the two cameras, we'll see, but theoretically the difference of the between the two cameras should diminish greatly. Now, with that being said, you can't use pixel shifting really when you're shooting landscape because trees move.
Right.
So that doesn't work. But we will see. I will be looking at that very closely in the coming days.
Have you ever looked at that new Fujifilm medium format camera?
The GFX 50S.
GFX, yep.
I have, and so there are a couple of things that are interesting about that camera. It has the same 50 megapixel sensor as the Hasselblad X1D.
Oh, interesting.
It has a more traditional form factor for medium format, and has one thing that I really like that the X1D doesn't have, and that is a $500-something option, which allows you to tilt and swivel the viewfinder. And that is great. I miss that. And that's one thing that the GX8 has that I really like.
Interesting. I've got the Canon 5DSR, which I got about a year and a half ago. I shouldn't have gotten it. It really wasn't the right camera for the way I like to shoot or anything. I just got kind of mesmerized by what it did. But it wasn't all that much different from having a 5DS, what is it, Mark III?
4, 3, 2,
yeah, it's about
1.
the same, except, and it's funny, it shoots good video. It doesn't have any video capabilities, but if you set it on a tripod, put a target in front of it like a person, an interview, it's good. It looks wonderful. Anything else? No, it's not really good for video. But the amazing thing is I've gotten more compliments on one video. One of our Tech Down Overs, actually a Life Ed show we did, where we had a restaurateur, and I had him on that camera as his close-up camera. It's amazing how beautifully that shot. And everybody always comments on, what is that? It's gorgeous. 5DSR. And they go, huh? What's that? But it's slow as hell on focus. It's just not fast. And I went, it was a great idea at the time when I got it, but I thought it was going to have a little bit more of the 5D Mark III, and I go, I could probably use some of No, it's very similar, but it didn't have any real video quality, capabilities per se. It takes nice pictures. The detail is rather amazing when you zoom in sometimes and go, wow, that's a lizard 500 feet away that I'm catching. How did I do that? But it doesn't, I don't know. There's something about it that I'm not crazy about. I think it's the speed. The focus speed is so darn slow that if I try to take it out on the street, I'll miss most of my shots.
So this is the original 1D.
Yes. Okay.
I bought it new back in 2002, and I retired it the same year.
Oh, so really?
And the reason why is because I was walking along the promenade in Brooklyn Heights one evening in September, and I didn't know what it was at first, and I saw across the river the World Trade Center memorial lights. And I took a photograph of that, and that image sits on a wall, and that's it. I just decided That's it. I'm retiring the camera, and I will never sell that camera. Never,
interesting.
Ever.
Yep.
But I recently took it out and shot it just in the Batcave, and then I had my iPhone and I shot with that, and then I had the GH5 and I shot with that. And 4 megapixels can be gorgeous, and 8 by 10, it just looked fantastic with a plastic fantastic nifty 50.
Yep.
It was great. But then I looked at the iPhone 7 Plus with simulated bokeh, and that looked pretty darn good too. And then I took out the GH5, and the GH5 blew both of them away.
Really? Okay.
So of course, again, our expectations evolve. But the 1D in 2002 was the cream of the crop. The Pulitzer Prizes were won with that kind of camera too.
Yep.
And
wasn't that an $8,000 camera at that time?
I think maybe 4,000.
Okay, I guess.
I don't remember. That was when I had more money than common sense, so I don't remember. So, but it's just so interesting. I mean, we love gear. We're boys and with the price of their toys.
Yep,
but
that's true.
At the end, it's select the gear, but then show up. That's the second thing. It's the more important thing, and then the most important thing is to shoot.
Yeah.
And for the most part, when we're not shooting, that's not our priority. It's, what are we going to do with this cool piece of kit? And I'm as guilty as anyone.
Yep, same here. I've bought a lot of cameras, and they sit there. I use them every so often. The ones I really like, I tend to shoot as much as I can when I can, and the rest, they hang around. I've started selling gear about a year and a half ago, and it worked out. I got rid of old gear I didn't need, and I was surprised how quickly it sold. Now, for example, I had the Fujifilm X-T2. That didn't do it for me. It's okay, but I don't like the controls, and I don't really care for the style of the X-T2. So
I'll be with you in a second. I'm just plugging in power.
Yeah. But it is funny how different cameras just tweak us in different ways. I've almost gotten Sony's, and then I pick them up, I go, my hands are bigger than the camera, and I'm going, this doesn't work. And that's one reason I never went with Sony. I had one of the Sonys, what was it? It was a Mark II version. It was the bridge camera.
RX,
yeah, the Mark II. It was a beautiful camera. Yeah. I liked it. It didn't have any heating issues with 4K. It just seemed to run really well. I gifted it to a friend of mine, and I was happy getting rid of it, even though it was a good camera. And the ergonomics weren't bad on that, but I've held the full framers, and it is so small in my hands, I can't do it. At least the like the A7Rs, A7s, it's just, they were too small.
I understand completely. At this point, it's clear that what separates Sony from total dominance over the entire market are the ergos and the menu systems. I mean, they've got the best sensors in the business. And now, when you think about Sony, you're not just thinking about, oh my God, I can shoot at ISO 208,000 or whatever it is. It's now, the real question is, am I ready to buy into lenses that are more expensive than Canon and Nikon?
I know. And
yet dramatically less expensive than Leica and Hasselblad and Schneider Kreuznach, and they are superb. The G-Master lenses are slaying everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. And the fact of the matter is that this year, as opposed to last year, Sony has the 16 to 35, the 24 to 70, and the 70 to 200. And really, other than a couple of super telephoto primes, they have everything that workaday professional event photographers could want. And that's it.
Now, who do you think Sony really markets to? Who do you think their prime market is? Because they are more expensive in some things, especially lenses. And that's going to get rid of half the photography market, which says, they're good, they're beautiful lenses, but that's a lot of money.
Well, it's very clear that Sony's strategy is, as is Panasonic's, as is Hasselblad's at this point, and Fuji's at this point, is to move up the value chain because the unit volumes are cratering. So they need to make more money on each camera they do sell. And so they're jamming them with as many features as they can. Sony is targeting the enthusiast amateur and the semi-pro up until the A9. With the A9, they're targeting the pros.
Yeah.
And there's no question about that. The volume, of course, is not with the pros. The A9 is a halo product.
Right.
The 400 millimeter 2.8 will be a halo product that sports professionals may choose to use. But the rest of it, these are for well-heeled enthusiasts, and again, semi-pros.
Now let's talk about lighting a little bit. What kind of lights do you like?
So it's interesting that you say that, because I'm much more concerned about lighting than I ever have been. When I shoot with the GH5, or even when I was shooting my vlog segments with the Sony a6300. I no longer shoot with the a6300 for that. I shoot the a6300 when I want the best autofocus of any camera that I have, or conversely when I have a need for absolutely the best high ISO performance of any camera that I have. But even then, I shoot lit. And my ambition with any camera that I use is to shoot at base ISO. Because at base ISO, you cannot tell differences born of sensor resolution. You can't. The a6300, 6500 have superb 4K image quality. In fact, I think slightly better than the A7 series.
Yeah.
And the GH5 has superb 4K imaging. I used to have an ARRI SoftBank 4 lighting kit, which was a pain in the butt. It was 5 Fresnels, and one day I had a shoot where I was interviewing one corporate person after another, and I was melting them with these Fresnels. I had them up close, and I was melting them.
Those are the good old days.
So I ended up ditching that. It was a couple of lights from Came TV, and then a light from Aperture. These were LED lights that convinced me to move over. And over the last couple of years, I did love the Astra Bisoft 1x.
Yeah.
I thought that was really well designed. But in fact, my go-to lights are Apertures. So, and it's the Lightstorm series at this point.
And what I'm using here on the show, if you can only see one of them, I think that one's hidden. But these are the blenders from Lowell.
Gotcha.
And they're nice because you get good skin tones. You can mix it to exactly what you need color-wise, and you get really good light out of them. And they're small, no heat.
Well, so that's another interesting thing, the surface area. So my key light, and I'm using this right now with the crap camera on my 2012 MacBook Pro, my webcam built in, but the light is a 3-foot wide Aperture light dome.
Oh, interesting. That looks really good, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it does, because I noticed when you were adjusting it really had a nice look to the light as you were going up and down. And that's not what is a $700 lamp, and you get almost the full light kit with one light.
Well, so what's interesting is that I recently got, so I have that as a key light. I often have the LS, and what's sitting behind it is their COB 120, which is a single chip on board light, which is brilliant because it's got the Bowens mount. So it lets me put it on, and it's really rock solid. But before that, I had the 1x, the Lightstorm 1S, actually, and I have a pair of Lightstorm half Ws. So these are like this, and they have 120-degree dispersion. I use them when I'm doing, when I want a white background and blow that out. So they're fantastic. And then I just got the flight kit of their mini LEDs, and these are brilliant because these allow me to do something that I haven't been able to do until now, which is really do very focused highlight, very dramatic lighting. So I'm pretty much Aperture all the way. It seems to me to be the absolute sweet spot as far as performance, color fidelity, reliability, robustness, and price. I mean, I think they do a great job, and I like them.
Yeah, they've come along. I mean,
I like the people behind the company.
Yeah, and from the beginning, they had just a couple of lights. All of a sudden, they just jumped. Within a year, they were one of the top vendors.
Well, they've got two guys in particular who I think are just phenomenal and really lovely people. So Ted Sim, of course, is their marketing guy, and man, he's got the metabolism of a hummingbird and the passion to match Sean Robinson.
Yeah.
And then their chief product guy is a guy by the name of Ray Chang.
Yes.
And Ray is a brilliant and, again, a really nice guy.
Yep, I've seen him on a couple of interviews. And yeah, they do a great job. I like the aperture. I have kind of an in-between aperture set, which has, I don't know, they're probably about 300 to 500 LED lights. They're not their top of the line. They're like the line right underneath the light storms. It was a 3-piece kit. You know, they're not bad. They're actually pretty good, and you have color tone again. You could balance out from 32 to 50, I think it was 55. And they do a nice job. So, you know what else I like? I've gotten some of these in the past. I think I have 4 of them right now, maybe 3. The flex lights from Westcott. They're actually fun light. I've used them a lot for interviews. Simple interviews. They do a good job, especially if you're in a hotel, you're in a big lobby area, wherever you're at. They're easy to move around, place. They don't weigh a darn thing, and you can put the whole kit together in minutes. They're fun.
What kind of light output do you get from them?
Oh gosh, what is it? I'm drawing a blank right now. If you go high on them, you're blind. You're totally blind. You can't see a thing.
Really?
They're very bright. And you've got a 95 CRI, which is good.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is when you do funny things like start circling around a pole, or you can do fun stuff with them, and you get interesting lighting effects from that. I just find them easy to set up. I don't know what the actual output is. I've shot them at about, I'd say, 15 feet from subject, and we were blinded when I went too high. They're really, really bright. That would be my only critique as well of that light, that it goes really bright and it can go pretty low, and the in-between you've got to be real careful. You just have to be a little careful as to how you light it. You may not get what you want, but that just takes a little tweaking. Other than that, it's not too bad. When you do the daylights, they have a nice daylight. They're not one of those that just make you blue or
Yeah.
It's a nice clean light. It almost looks like a sunlight kind of thing without overdoing it. So I like those. I've had good luck with those. And other than that, I used to use the old Kinoflows, the Diva 400s.
Oh, sure.
And I still like them. They give out some of the best light, but I don't like traveling with them because fluorescents break. And, I've never had one break yet, but I'm just waiting for that day, and it's going to happen. So we haven't used them in about a couple of years now, and they're still here. They're on, we've got the C stands for them, but they're not travel friendly. They're just...
I hear you.
In the old days we did, but not now. Now we put everything in bags, we ship them via FedEx. Life is good. But in the old days, we used to only take those things locally because they were too heavy. And when you start carrying C-stands with you, you're in trouble.
So this is interesting because I also have a pile of lights, new lights from Kane TV, and I'm in a long-term review of that. I mean, I have to use this stuff a lot.
Yeah.
And they have lighter stands than what I'm used to, and the aperture mini LED, which is also chip on board, has an even smaller light stand, although it's made really well.
Yeah.
And they pack down to nothing. So the kit, the flight kit, the aperture mini LED 20, I think it is, flight kit, is tiny. Tiny, and it's 3 lights, 3 stands, and just incredible. But of course, what's also clear is the value of a diffuser, a 3-in-1 diffuser reflector, and sometimes that's all you need.
That's true, and it's funny, people don't think about the diffuser much, but that's what gives you that nice light sometimes. Because the LEDs tend to be a little harsher. No matter what you try, they are a little harsher until you diffuse them up. They're just real bright.
That's right, and there's so many different points. So this move to single point LED light source is where I'm at. When I'm lighting people or I'm lighting objects, at this point, I want the single point light source. And then with that Bowens mount on the 120T, the 120D, and the 300, and then the barn doors, and I'm waiting for snoots on the little guys, but you can put a snoot, anything that you can mount to Bowens, you can now mount to these lights. And I think that's really the big deal, because you can pack down the actual heads. They're pretty small.
Yeah, nice.
And yeah, it's a big deal.
All I know is we've come such a long way from even 20, 30 years ago. 20 years ago, it's so different.
10 years ago.
And it's fun. It's fun. I love the new lights. I like all the new cameras, everything. And it's a lot of. I still hear people pining about their old film cameras. I go, I don't want film. I never liked film.
Well,
it's okay.
Course, I mean, I loved film. That's what I was weaned on. I had my own darkroom when I was a kid. By the time I was 16, I was developing not only in black and white but color.
Yeah.
And I loved that. Although every now and again the fumes would get a little bit overpowering.
Yeah. My dad had a dark room, and I used to hang out and watch him, and it was fun. I like the look of film, and actually that's one thing I do like about Fuji. They have those film effects, which actually look pretty darn good, especially when you're filming.
I mean, the Fuji Acros simulation, digital simulation, is flippin' fantastic. Some of my favorite shots of 2017 were taken with that XT2. We've talked about this. Next to Bryant Park in New York City back in April. I mean, the XT2, fantastic body, fantastic controls, and the prime lenses. Oh my God.
They're nice. They're actually nice. Yep.
Oh my God. Especially the 16 1.4 and the 56 millimeter 1.2.
Yep.
Yeah.
I compromised. I sold one of them and kept one of them.
Okay.
Didn't get rid of both of them.
But I know you didn't like the XT2 ergos that much.
To me, it's the ergos. I don't care that much for the ergos or the way their switches are. I find it tedious. I much prefer more the Panasonic, which is really kind of a copy of a Canon. If you look at the GH4 and 5, it's exactly the same. Yeah, I mean, they did a very good job of making it almost the same as a Canon. So for me, mostly a Canon shooter, I just grabbed it and went, good, nice, and had no problem. I was shooting in minutes, going, it felt good. So yeah, I don't know, I like it, and it's funny. I've gotten away from the camcorders, but I'm getting back into it. They're getting better and better and better again.
They are.
And short of the, it's funny. I almost got the Panasonic camcorder. I forgot which number it was, VX or VT, something or other. It's basically a GH5 with a different form factor, and I was thinking, I don't really need a camcorder. The GH5 is a camcorder of sorts.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's awfully close, and it is so. I have walked around places shooting with it, and when I look back on it later, I just go, I can't believe I'm not on any kind of stabilizer. It's it's incredible how good it is.
Right. So the G9, so the Sony A7R III came out, and Sony had upped the in-body image stabilization by half a stop to 5.5 stops.
Yep.
Then I'm at this G9 press briefing, and they say it's got 6.5 stops.
6.5. Wow.
But listen to this. At that 6.5 stops, IBIS alone. Alone. So, for example, I have an Olympus, what is it over here? The 75 millimeter 1.8. This is a fantastic lens.
Yeah, stabilized.
Not stabilized.
Not stabilized. Yep.
Not stabilized. So, but with the G9, you get 6.5 stops of image stabilization on this. So what does dual IS do for you? So here's what it does for you. When you use a Panasonic lens, because it only works with certain Panasonic lenses, it will allow you, and most people don't know about this, but image stabilization typically only works up to a certain field of view and then just deteriorates to nothingness. And it's interesting because you look at this guy, the iPhone 7 Plus. So, there we go. And it's got the two lenses. The wide-angle lens is the one that's stabilized. The longer lens is not.
Right.
So what Panasonic is claiming is that you can get 6.5 stops on a dual IS2 compatible Sony lens out to the field of view of a 280 millimeter full length equivalent.
Wow.
So normally you can't get that close at all.
No.
So that's really fascinating.
That's pretty good.
I've got stabilizers up the yin yang. I got rid of my big stabilizers. I use a DJI Osmo. Claudia is amazing with that thing with an iPhone.
They're great.
And then you have a Crane M, which is great for like the 6300, but we're generally not even using that anymore. I've got a Came TV gimbal, which looks fantastic. I haven't had time to play with it yet. And I haven't had an occasion where I need that anymore because the GH5 is so good.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And I saw the videos before I got it, and when I got it, I just went, it's true. Wow. It's actually true. They didn't lie. It's pretty amazing. I was really wondering what they were going to do with the GH5. I was a little afraid they were going to ruin it. And no, they didn't. They did a good job on it. I did get the new firmware, as most of us, I think, have it. I have not yet shot in the 10-bit or any. I just have no need right now. But I notice it just, and the focus does seem better. I saw not an enormous focus increase, but it seems better. I shoot myself a lot where I'm kind of in selfie mode, and I use my phone to focus, and that seems fine. It didn't seem to have any issue with that.
Well, you did some tests a while back, Rick. I saw them with the Nocticron. Now, the Nocticron, so this is another thing about Panasonic autofocus. They talk a lot about DFD as a companion to contrast detect autofocus, D for depth from defocus. But that only works with Panasonic lenses that they've calibrated it for. So the Nocticron would be better, for example, or the 25 millimeter Sunilux would be better than my Sigma 30 millimeter 1.4.
Right. Now I have the 25 millimeter. I love that lens.
It's a good lens.
That is a darn
really good lens.
It's fast. Is it 1.8 or 1.4? I thought it was 1.4.
Yeah, the 25 millimeter is 1.4.
1.4. Yeah, that thing is just lovely. In fact, it doesn't come off my camera all that much right now. I've been using that a lot, and the picture quality is beautiful. The video quality is great. I shot at a very dark convention not long ago, and it looked pretty daylightish in there with that lens. I was going, holy smoke, this is not supposed to be a low light camera. I didn't get that much noise, and it really just upped the whole gain in that place. I was literally taken aback by, and I was only at 1600.
Yeah, well, the GH5 is great at 1600. I did tests where I was comfortable using it up to 6400, and I had samples where this thing is shooting at 6400, and in the real world, when you're looking at it, you're not going, let me look at that, let me look at that, let me look at that. You're actually just watching the story unfold, and it's great.
They're pretty amazing. It's a great camera. I think the whole idea behind them is just it runs well, it shoots well, the end result is not bad.
Again, I'll go further. I'll say the end result is flipping fantastic.
It is.
And the price point is unbeatable. The one qualm that I have about not just the 25-1.4 or even the Nocticron, it's really almost all high-end lenses now. The Sigmas are the exception, but they're not the highest from the pricing perspective, is that even lenses like the Zeiss Milvis and the Nocticron and the 25 millimeter Sunilux and Sony lenses, although I didn't see them in G Master, is too much chromatic aberration. Now, when you're doing stills, who cares? Because you can dial it out in post.
Right.
But not when you're shooting video.
No, different.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Hugh, we are at the end of our time, and as always, it's been a great pleasure having you on. One of these days, I want to meet you in person. I know we'll get to meet you in person one of these days.
Oh, sure, that would be great.
It's always fun.
I need to have an excuse to go out to California. That's what needs to happen.
Or me to go back east, because I've never been to Philadelphia area. I've been to Pennsylvania, but only on the outskirts. So it's funny, growing up in New York, never been to Pennsylvania. Go figure.
Where did you grow up in New York?
I grew up in Queens.
I grew up in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn? My dad worked in Brooklyn at the ports. He was he was with the Argentine Naval Commission, and he worked making sure the ships came in right, had the paperwork done, did a whole mess of stuff there. He was in charge of that office, and I remember oh man, those Brooklyn sub sandwiches, the heroes. Oh, they were so good, and the pizza. I remember that well. But no, I lived in Queens. Where was I? Not too far from Forest Hills, right around that general area.
My mother still lives in Forest Hills.
The Van Wyck Expressway and Queensboro, Queens Boulevard, I think.
Queens Boulevard,
sure. Right where the Van
Boulevard
Wyck was.
of Death. You know, just try to cross that. Just try to walk across
insane.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a long time ago, and I don't really miss New York. I guess when we moved out to LA, I was about 14, and I loved LA. It's just not so much now. And LA is just weird. It lost whatever personality it had, but back then it was different. Especially coming from New York, it's like, wow, where's Frank and Annette Funicello? That's where it was. So it was sort of fun. It was sort of fun being here. Now I'm on the outskirts. I'm about 50 miles northwest of the airport. We're in Camarillo, California, Thousand Oaks, Camarillo, Ventura, Santa Barbara. So that's kind of where we're at. We're closer to Santa Barbara by about 10 to 15 minutes.
Nice.
Than
Beautiful weather.
It is pretty out here, though our weather's been weird this year. We've gotten into the hundreds where we're never past 75 usually. So don't know what's going on. It's just weird.
That would be global weirding.
Yeah, that's what they say. Anyway, hey, it's been a pleasure. I know Jeff will be watching the show assiduously, going, I wanted to be on that show. So we'll have him on the next one.
He's a very good guy.
He is. He's a great guy, good friend. But anyway, we'll see you next time. Thanks for coming on. If you're watching the show, subscribe. Let us know what you think, and come back next week. Actually, we're having another show tomorrow. Jeff will be on that. I think we're just going, Jeff and I, tomorrow. Come watch us then. We'll be babbling about something or other. Have a good one.
Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
for having me.